May 1945. The sirens across Europe finally fall silent. The Third Reich, a regime built on iron and blood, has collapsed into ash and ruin. Across London, Paris, and New York, millions flood the streets to toast to an hard-won era of peace. The long nightmare of the Second World War is over. But inside a locked, smoke-filled military headquarters in occupied Bavaria, the atmosphere is anything but celebratory. It is low. General George S. Patton Jr., the brilliant and erratic commander of the legendary United States Third Army, stands alone over a massive tactical map of Europe. His ivory-handled revolvers rest on his hips, and his fingers trace a red line directly past the broken borders of Germany, cutting straight through Poland and stopping dead on Moscow. While the world celebrates a new dawn, Patton is quietly calculating how many days it will take his battle-hardened tanks to reach the Kremlin. To him, the war hadn't ended. It had just been paused, and he wanted to unpause it. Turning to his inner staff, Patton muttered a phrase that would terrify Washington if it leaked. "We're going to have to fight them sooner or later. Why not now, while our army is intact and our columns are hot?" History books tell us the Cold War began years later, fought with shadow spies, proxy conflicts, and nuclear standoffs. But they completely omit a terrifying, hidden window in May and June of 1945, where the world almost burned in a third world war, not because of a political crisis, but because a rogue American general was actively trying to start one. This is the untold story of Patton's secret rearmament of German troops, his illegal border provocations, and the frantic, undocumented scramble by Dwight D. Eisenhower to stop his own most dangerous general before he set the globe on fire. To understand the massive information gap hidden beneath the official history of the day, we have to look at the map of Europe exactly the way Patton saw it. The Red Army hadn't just captured Berlin. They had swallowed Eastern Europe whole. Millions of Soviet soldiers, hardened by years of brutal total warfare against the Wehrmacht, stood organized and occupying everything from Prague to Vienna. Washington and the mainstream press viewed this as a monumental diplomatic triumph of the Allied coalition. General Patton, however, looked at the horizon with absolute horror. He saw a massive, totalitarian machine sitting right on the doorstep of a completely exhausted, bankrupt, and defenseless Western Europe. Patton's personal diaries, which were heavily censored for decades after his death, reveal an unsettling truth. He genuinely believed the Allied High Command was throwing away the very victory they had just spent years bleeding for. He wrote bitterly, "We have destroyed what could have been a barrier against communism and replaced it with a monstrous tyrant." Most generals obey foreign policy, but Patton believed he answered to a higher power and a self-proclaimed mystical destiny. He was entirely convinced he had lived past lives as a Greek hoplite, a Roman legionary, and a cavalryman under Napoleon. To him, the plains of Central Europe were just another historic canvas where he was destined to conquer an empire. By mid-May, Patton decided he wasn't going to wait for a green light from political bureaucrats in Washington. He began taking secret, highly unauthorized practical steps to prepare his Third Army for a sudden offensive eastward. This is where the standard historical narrative completely breaks down into a hidden conspiracy. As part of the official surrender agreements, Patton's forces had rounded up hundreds of thousands of German prisoners of war, Supreme Allied Protocol dictated these men were to be immediately disarmed, logged, stripped of their military structures, and placed into labor camps. But Patton gave his corps commanders an astonishing verbal directive that defied every treaty. Signed by the United States, he ordered them to maintain the internal command structures of select German panzer and veteran infantry divisions entirely intact. German officers kept their uniforms, their men, and their organization. Even more shocking, German military mechanics were quietly ordered to keep servicing their Panther and Tiger tanks, their half-tracks, and their heavy artillery pieces instead of dismantling them. To any outside inspector, it appeared the Third Army was simply suffering from a massive logistical bottleneck in processing the sheer volume of surrendering troops. In reality, Patton was preserving a highly disciplined, fanatically anti-communist ghost army. He openly told his inner circle, "We can weaponize them, integrate them into our own armored columns, and push the Red Army back across the Volga in a matter of weeks." It was a gamble that completely violated the Yalta agreements. If Soviet intelligence got wind of it, the alliance would instantly rupture, triggering a hot war on the spot. And Patton wasn't content with just waiting for the spark, he went out to find it. By late May, he took his most dangerous step yet by ordering unauthorized high-altitude tactical reconnaissance flights. American scout planes crossed directly over the demarcation lines, photographing Soviet supply hubs, bridge deployments, and troop concentrations deep within the Soviet zone. On the ground, Patton's 4 will carry units began conducting incredibly aggressive border patrols, intentionally pushing into unmapped gray zones. On several occasions, American and Soviet armored cars stood bumper to bumper on isolated dirt roads, weapons drawn, waiting for someone's finger to slip. Patton wasn't trying to avoid an incident. He was actively hunting for a border clash to use as a justification to launch his tanks. He told his command group, "If they start a fight, I will finish it right in their own backyard." By early June, reports of Patton's rogue logistical maneuvers and hostile border patrols finally leaked north to the Supreme Allied headquarters in Frankfurt. General Dwight D. Eisenhower read the intelligence intercepts with absolute dread. "I could spend years managing the volatile egos of the global alliance on a knife's edge." He knew that if Patton moved just one single tank division past the line, the fragile post-war peace would shatter instantly. Eisenhower immediately bypassed standard channels, picked up the secure line, and ordered Patton to report to his headquarters under total secrecy. What followed was an explosive, closed-door confrontation between the two old friends. Eisenhower screamed at Patton, demanding to know why he was keeping organized German divisions on the payroll. Patton fired back, accusing the politicians of cowardice, famously shouting that they would eventually have to fight the Soviets anyway, so they might as well do it while the US held the industrial upper hand. Eisenhower had to make a choice to save global stability. He had to break his most successful combat general. Within weeks, Patton was quietly but systematically stripped of his beloved Third Army command and reassigned to a meaningless desk job overseeing a military history group. The man who had conquered Europe was effectively neutralized. Just months later, in December 1945, General Patton was riding in his staff car on his way to a pheasant hunt in Germany when a military truck suddenly collided with his vehicle at a low-speed intersection. It was a minor crash that left everyone else unhurt. But Patton was thrown forward, breaking his neck. 12 days later, the unstoppable general died in a hospital bed, paralyzed from the neck down. To this day, historians debate whether that crash was a tragic coincidence. La finale, dark mechanism used by a desperate world to ensure the mad general could never start the war he so deeply craved. The monument to Patton stands today in Luxembourg, but the true lesson of May 1945 remains hidden in the shadows. That sometimes the most terrifying threat to peace isn't the enemy you face, but the unstoppable warrior fighting right beside you. Please comment your opinion in the below comment box.